All About Writing with Ben and Sara.
Welcome to All About Writing, the podcast that covers everything about the world of writing from the inside out. This is episode 57, part 8, on our series on screenwriting. I'm Sara, here with my co-host Ben, who is an award-winning, best-selling author and ghostwriter, editor, and publisher.
And I'm Ben, here with my co-host Sara, who is an award-winning, best-selling author, screenwriter, editor, and TED Talk presenter. And today, we're talking about screenwriting, and in particular, we're talking about writing movies. Because who doesn't love movies? And how do they get made? So I'm fascinated by this, and Sara has more experience than I do in writing movies. As I said before, I just do TV.
I know.
But
I only do TV pilots.
Yeah, I don't think it's really something we brag about too much, but movies are something that actually are beyond me. I've never written a movie script, so I'm quite curious to learn about this. I've written novels, which I think are the same thing, but I realize they're not at all. So that'll definitely be something I'll come back to. But okay, so writing movies. Here we go. Writing movie scripts. I guess my first question, Sara, is how long does it take to write a movie script? What's the process?
That question is different for every writer.
Mm.
Just like writing a novel, like some people can write books relatively quick. The one thing that movies have that books don't really have is there is generally a length that you want to stay under for a film. 90 to 120 pages is really the industry standard. Anything under 90 is considered too short, and anything over 120, it's like, wow, who do you think you are, Christopher Nolan? Is this a 3-hour movie? Like, if it's considered unprofessional to show an executive a script that's kind of not in that range. Obviously, like, give or take 2 pages, like if it's 88 pages or 123, like it's fine, but that's really kind of so. And from there, then it just depends on how fast you write, and if you know what's going to happen and you have your beats already outlined. From there, it can take anywhere from a couple of days if you're really, that's all you're doing is writing that screenplay.
Yeah.
To months. I mean, some people years, just like a book. Like, they agonize over it, they're rewriting it constantly, they're working with script, like, they're not script supervisors, they're like script consultants. That's a whole job. And it really depends on also the genre. Certain genres require a lot more, they're a lot more like, I don't want to say exposition, because you never want to use exposition in a movie, just like in a TV script. You don't want to have a lot of exposition, but some things like if you're writing a musical, like if you can actually, for a while it was available online. I don't know if you can find it anymore, but the script for Moana was available. You could grab it and read it, and the way that is written is very different than like a rom-com, because you've got all of the descriptions of what's happening during the songs.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The songs are in there and everything. It's so detailed because it's animated, and they need to really give like stage direction to the animators on what they want to see happening during that animated movie versus a rom-com or even a thriller or a detective movie. Those have less of that, so they're a little bit less heavy-handed in the writing of that.
And this is a really good point about working with Hollywood as opposed to working with New York with writing. With a screenplay, I'm sure, now correct me if I'm wrong, you as the writer don't have a free hand to just do whatever you want. Like, as an author, you can just write your book, you finish it, you give it to your editor, you're done. It's all you. With a screenwriter, I get the feeling, like you mentioned, like, script consultants and so on, you're going to have other people involved in this during the creation process. Is that true?
Yes and no. Well, I can back all the way up. I'll sometimes get ideas for movies, and I will, because I do have a manager, I can go to him and I can say, I have an idea. Can I write? Do you think this is worth my time to write?
Mm-hmm.
And he might have a beat on the market and say, "Don't waste your time. Wait till someone pays you to write that and just write the synopsis, like the
Yeah.
outline." Um, and other times I just really want to write the screenplay, so I just do it because I want to anyway. And knowing that there's going to be 100 revisions, not even just my own editing. There will be people, essentially every single person who comes in contact with your script, and this is true of TV scripts too, to some degree, but movies especially, everybody's going to have edits. Everybody's going to have opinions. You're going to be making edits even on set. You're going to be making edits on the fly. There is constant changes, and so there is a part of me that you do want a nice script, and you want a script that has the proper beats in the right places, just like a book. But I'm so aware of how collaborative and how many edits are ahead of me once I write my screenplay that I don't kill myself over making it so precious. Like, you
Right.
just, there's no point in agonizing over the details in a movie script, because there's it's 100% for sure it's going to change.
Right. Yeah, which I think is really different from writing a book,
Yeah.
because you as the author have complete control. And if your
Yeah.
editor doesn't agree with you, you still have complete control. Like you are actually are allowed to overrule your editor if you know, that whole stat that you can write in there in the editing comments. You know, stat, he
Yeah.
said, drunk with power. Yeah.
I
Um,
never used that. I should use that. No, you know what though? And so much is wrapped up in money and who has power
mm,
in the development process. So if you have an executive producer who's already attached to the project or gets attached to the screenplay, um, there's there's a lot of edits involved. And I guess I speak to scripts that are written on spec, meaning like you weren't hired to write them. If you're hired to write a script, you're
mm,
paid to write it. And you're even paid for multiple revisions at a certain point. Your time is accounted for in writing that script. Even if it doesn't get produced, you get paid for your time writing it. Other times, you're writing on spec and you're gathering your pieces together, and all those revisions are being done on the fly, but also for free, unless you have someone who's above you. You're the screenwriter, but certain producers are above you. If they've got notes, if you don't make those notes the way they want,
mm.
they can just be like, I'm not interested in the project anymore, and walk.
Wow. Okay. So I mean, this is really good to know. This is really good.
Yeah.
And, talk about going in eyes wide open, like understanding, yeah, don't get too close to this. Now, do you find that it's mostly just little details that change? Or like you talked about the beats, and like, the acts of the movie, like do those tend to stay the same?
No, nope,
Mm,
even those can shift. There's usually a lot of rearranging, where they might say, have this happen earlier, but then add in 2 more scenes. So, like, it's full rearranging that you have to be doing at all times. The notes are not usually that nitpicky at all. They're actually usually larger notes.
mm,
Or can you make sure that this happens so the character development is this? Because they're really, and because people are coming into this from a visual, they're envisioning the scenes and how they're unfolding, and they want to see that happening on the page. And I will say, like, I've worked with executive producers, like, who are like Oscar nominated executive producers, and there have been times where they're like, oh, do this and this and this and this, and then I do, and then like 2 more iterations later, they'll come back and go, I think it was right the first time, can we go back to that?
mm. Well, it's good of them to recognize that.
Oh, well, they want the best product too.
Yeah.
Um, but they're not infallible. And but working, I think it's rarer to find an executive producer who's like that. But if you're working with the good ones, they're just trying to pull out the threads of the best story possible on the page.
Yeah, and I mean, something that our listeners should really understand here is that anything to do with movies or TV for that matter is a very collaborative process. And as writers, we bring one set of expert skills to it. But we don't have all the expertise. And I guess rather than going into this, there's a temptation to think, oh, all these idiots are going to mess up my beautiful script. I Perhaps it would be to go in saying, nope, these people are experts in their own right, and they bring a different take to this, and they're going to take what I've created, which is good, and they're going to mold it to be their vision. Is that an accurate assessment of the
Yeah.
process?
If you're going in with an understanding of the industry, I mean, there are, and I am friends with people who have written, directed, and produced their own features, and
Mm,
like they're big with like big stars, and but they're then an anomaly in a way, and they've probably been in the industry for 40 years, and they've directed, they've already written multiple, like they have the skill sets you're talking about. But like for someone like you and I, or anyone else who's going to go out and start writing screenplays just to have that be another medium for them to create, you absolutely should not be, I mean, depending on who you're working with and your negotiation, you can negotiate to be a producer on your own movie. Usually it's a producer that doesn't have any say in the room because you don't have any like track record being a producer, but you can be a producer as well as a screenwriter. But again, it comes down to the contracts and who you're working with, if they'll even allow you to have those points and be
yeah.
part of the process at that stage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I think it comes once again back to a little bit of humility and just understanding that you are just part of the process here, as
right.
opposed to the entire process, like a novelist is.
Right,
Yeah,
right. But
yeah,
otherwise, the stuff, I mean, that we've talked about, like in our very early like screenwriting episodes where we are talking about, just even the shape of a script, it's the same kind of thing where the more white space on the page, the better. You don't have huge chunks of description at all. I mean, it really needs to be under 4 lines, less than 3 sentences, just to get somebody in the space. Like when you're describing the scene to set up, it needs to be short and concise. And so that all of that we've already talked about is true for both TV and feature scripts, ideally. And I will say though, and something that happens differently in TV, but in movies, once you do have a script and you get a director on board, that director will actually probably have notes on the script,
mhm,
almost guaranteed, but we'll also do a director's version of the script that has markups. They're going to break it down for in certain scenes that then goes to the line producer to figure out the budget.
mm,
And so all of that happens um later. And you might even, and I have this with one of my projects, I have a festival script. That's the one that I send out to for awards, things like that. And then there's a director's script that is completely internal, and that's what the working document is, and it's different than the
mm,
festival script. There might be different scenes, there might be different um we might have changed a few things, we might have added notes and description that he wants to keep. Like, I want this scene and I don't want to forget that I want to shoot this scene. Can you write it in? It's not needed for the screenplay that goes out, but he wants those notes in, and then he has everything broken down. It becomes math at a certain point.
yeah,
Your screenplay becomes math.
yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
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 So have you had to ever adapt a book into a screenplay? Have you been through that process?
Yes.
And how is that?
Actually, and I will say I've gone both ways. I was brought on to take a screenplay and turn it into a book.
Oh, wow.
Very difficult. More difficult than the other way, which is to take a book and turn it into a screenplay.
Well, why is that?
Because again, you have a screenplay, there's minimal information on the page, but you're still, and it was a sci-fi book, right? So like, or sci-fi screenplay, like an apocalyptic type of thing. And so like, there's no visuals.
Mm,
There's no, you're guessing on creating ambience. You're guessing on all the things we throw into novels, the five senses, the descriptions of the atmosphere, the play by play that you put into a book. So like one page of a screenplay would usually translate to anywhere from 3 to 7 pages of a novel.
wow.
So it's very difficult to do, and I would never do it again. Like, I would never do it again. So and then the The other way is easier because you're really just you're simplifying. The hard part is if the beats of the book don't translate well to a screenplay, in that, you might not use everything, or you might decide that certain things aren't strong enough, or an opening scene isn't strong enough for a screenplay, so you are making stuff up.
Right.
But sometimes all you're doing is using the characters in the book, and then you're just kind of uh building a whole new set of actions that happen, but you're using the characters.
Yeah. Oh yes, I mean, many, many, many moviegoers have just wailed and gnashed their teeth about how the movie isn't the same as the book. Um, and full credit, I think, to the Peter Jackson and his team who made the Lord of the Rings into the movies, 20 years ago, because they in the special features they explained a lot of their thinking and said, yeah, we know we took this part out, but it just didn't work for the film, and here's why. And we know we combined these two characters into one because it just made more sense for the movie. And I appreciate them explaining to the die-hard book fans, and I think it makes a lot of sense. They are different media. A movie has to move faster. A book has to go in more depth. I mean, it's the way that they're built, and they are adaptations of each other. They're not direct interpretations.
Correct. And I would say I've only seen a handful of things that the the book to film was well done and almost word for word, in a way, like
Hmm.
beat for beat. And one of those is Stardust by Neil Gaiman.
Hmm.
That one, it was fantastically done. Um, that's the only one I could think of off the top of my head right now. I know there was another one that I was like, well done. But those books are shorter, and
Hmm.
um and kind of and because of that, the action is condensed, and so it's all it does come, that's why bigger books or sagas tend to not, I mean, anybody who's read the Outlander books and then watched the TV show, yes, there's some similarities, but then there are things that you're like, well, that's not how that went down. And
Hmm.
and so it that's the one thing you have to give movies grace, because it is impossible. Sometimes the reason it's different is because as a screenwriter, while I'm writing a movie, I'm also thinking of budget in my head.
Yeah.
And so I might specifically write something, even though it takes place in the past, I'll specifically make sure that there are no horses
Hmm.
in the film, even though the horses might be implied. Maybe we'll hear the horses, but if we don't have to see them, I just save the production a ton of money.
Yeah.
And there are certain things different directors are like, "Oh my gosh, you put in animals and children." And part of that is because there's expense with the animals, and trying to get them to, do what you want the chicken to do in the movie. But also, there's a whole different set of rules for minors on set, how many hours they can work. So suddenly you've extended out your shoot dates. It's no longer a 3-week shoot or a 5-week shoot. Now it's a 7-week shoot, because they can only work so many hours each day according to like the labor laws. And
Yeah.
now your production is 3 weeks more, and everything that goes with that. So when you're writing a film, you're also, if you're a savvy film writer, you're also going to be thinking about cost as you're writing. And so in a way we are never doing with books, like, how much is this book going to cost to be published? No.
Yeah.
How much is this scene going to cost?
That's right.
And
More spaceships, and more
yeah,
space.
more spacious. Yeah. I mean, now there's a whole different, I mean, the industry is changing so much with different technology, that certain scenes that we used to like, period pieces used to be a big no-no because they were so expensive to make. And now with the birth of these 3D studios, like what The Mandalorian was filmed in, things like that, there are so many elements that are very easy to create, and then they kind of are stored, and then you can use them, and it decreases the cost hugely.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a good
Yeah.
point. There's just so many things outside of the screenplay that the screenwriter has to think about, and I
Right.
mean, budget is a great one, and the input of other people who have legitimately good things to say is another one. So
Yeah.
very different for sure, but fascinating stuff.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Any last bits of advice you want to give on anyone who's thinking about writing a movie screenplay?
No, other than to something that I've always reiterated when it comes to screenplay writing, which I think I've said in every episode, is just the least amount of ego you can have walking in the door will make everything easier for you. I mean, obviously, if there's a few things you want to fall on your sword on, but make sure you really want to fall on your sword. But otherwise, just be open. You're creating the start of something much bigger, and you have to be able to welcome all of those. The minute actually I hear anybody in when I'm talking to other screenwriters, because I put on my producer hat. Fun fact, I am Emmy award-winning producer.
Oh, my word.
Yes, so I know enough about productions. It was an Emmy from a while ago, but also, it if I, as a producer, or with my producer hat on, hear a screenwriter who's never had a screenplay published and is, just learning, the even in that initial conversation, I can usually tell if they're going to be difficult to work with because they're set on their script.
Right.
And then I won't help, or I won't be able, I'll be like, I just, it's not worth fighting from day one on someone who is already set and not going to be able to be fluid in this process.
Yeah. No,
So,
that's great advice. Great advice.
yeah.
Okay, well, I think we'll call it there. Sarah, do you
Yeah.
want to take us home?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know, I mean, there's so much to cover, but for today, that's the shout. But anyway, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our screenwriting chats and other chats. And please leave a review. It helps us a lot. Don't forget, you can find Ben at bennettrcoles.com and find him as well on Instagram and Facebook.
You can catch up with Sarah at sarahdahlman.com and on Instagram. Thanks for joining us today. Please reach out if there are any topics that you'd like us to cover, and we'll see you again when we next chat all about writing.
This has been All About Writing with Ben and Sara.